Summerville police are sharing new information about the man they say barricaded himself inside a home following an assault overnight. Floyd Mattern was charged with assault and battery after police say he beat up his roommate when the victim came over to pack up his things and move out. Officers say they went to Mattern's home on Swift Court about 12:30 this morning after speaking with the victim and a witness. Neighbors were advised to shelter in place briefly after Mattern refused to come outside, prompting authorities to call in SWAT and other agencies. Officers say he was taken into custody about 6:30 this morning and booked into the Dorchester County Jail. Police say the assault victim was taken to the hospital and found to have a fractured eye socket, jaw, and nose. No word on his current condition.